As you can see, I'm digged down. I forgot that was on there. I haven't used this in a couple of years, so, but it's good because I might forget. Well, you never know. I've got a mind like a sieve nowadays. But anyway, so this time of year is when the kids get all excited, and a lot of us start thinking back about when we were kids. And there's a lot of things that remind us about when we were children, like the John Hancock. Yeah. You all remember this?
Yeah.
Or at least some of you are too young, probably. Rachel, you might be too young to remember that. But anyway, during the 50s, of course, we got these at church and we got them at school also.
Yeah. Imagine that.
Yeah, and
So
our house was full of these.
Yeah.
And about 20 years ago, I was going through my parents' papers, and I came across one. So I kept it because it just reminded me of when I was young.
Yes.
And eventually, I threw it away because I've been very conscious about trying to get rid of clutter. I did programs on clutter and all that. But literally, it was about 3 months after I threw this out that Evelyn approached me and asked me if I'd do a talk at the Christmas dinner. And so I thought, well, it would be a good prop to have. So I went to eBay. It cost me $8. And that was about 15 years ago now. It's quite a while ago. Well, how many of you remember the writing a Christmas list for Santa?
Oh, yeah.
And can anyone remember something that you wrote on your list that you actually got? Anybody remember that you might want to share with us?
A Ginny doll.
Okay, a Ginny doll?
A Ginny doll.
Okay,
Does
so-
anybody remember Ginny doll?
Oh, yes.
Remember Ginny?
So you wrote that on your list and you
Yeah.
got it?
Yeah.
You know, I never got my pony.
You never got your
No,
phone.
no, I never got my pony. How many of you remember the Sears Roebuck Christmas toy catalog?
Oh, that was fun.
And it was in color. It was color. And at our house, we used to circle the things that we wanted. And well, when I bet this has happened to most of you. We went. My mother would take us into a store, and Santa Claus would be in there. So we get to sit on his lap, tell him what we wanted. Then we'd leave the store and go down the street, and there's Santa ringing the bell. And we go to the next store, and Santa's in there. And I asked my mom, "What's going on?" And she said, "Well, Dave, those are just Santa's helpers. You know, Santa can't be everywhere, so he's got the helpers." And at 6 years old, I guess that was enough for me. And then when we got a little older, we could walk uptown ourselves. How many of you remember Woolworths, a 5 and 10 type of store? And back then, you know, we would buy presents for our brother or sister, but back then there were literally some items that you could buy for a nickel or a dime. Remember that? And how many of you remember the goldfish in there? Remember? You could buy goldfish at Woolworths, or the green turtles. Remember the green turtles? Yeah, you remember them, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Well, so then the night before Christmas would come. And my family, we go caroling. My parents would take us out to a couple of their friends' homes, and we'd carol, you know, jingle bells, whatever. Go inside, get cookies or whatever, and then we'd come home. And then we'd take the socks and put them on the mantle. Now, the kids today have these fancy socks, great big thing. We use regular socks. How many of you use regular socks? Nobody? There's one, but okay, yeah, we used my father's socks.
Yeah, because they were bigger.
Yeah, we put it, yeah, because they were bigger than us. And we put it on the mantle. Well, actually, I'll have to be honest with you. We didn't really have a mantle. What we had was one of those fake cardboard fireplaces. Remember those? Yeah. And you know, it used to bother me. How does Santa Claus get into the house? We didn't have a real fireplace. And of course, my mother said, "Well, Dave, we just leave the front door unlocked." And that's how he gets in. Well, and then, we'd leave out the milk and the cookies and then get into bed, and it was so hard to fall asleep. How many of you remember laying there in bed, listening for the reindeer up on the roof? Right, yeah. How many of you heard the reindeer on the roof? Yeah. And so then the Christmas morning we'd come, you go down because the milk and cookies, some of them would be gone. We'd open our socks. In our socks, we always had an orange down at the bottom and some walnuts.
Yeah.
And I used to feel that it was just fillers. That my father and mother were just filling so they didn't have to put as many toys and candy and toothbrushes and that sort of thing, into the thing. But it wasn't until 20 years ago or so that I realized it was a real special treat for my parents and their parents back when they were young to have the orange in the stocking. Well, the types of toys that we had, of course, are a lot different from what the kids have nowadays. And because I don't remember what years, but I know my brother got a chemistry set once and a Rector set, if you remember those. And I got the Tinker Toys once. My sister got a Betsy Wetsy one year.
Oh, gosh.
Now, Betsy Wetsy came out in 1934. And in 1933, there was, if I can find it, a Didy doll. So the Didy doll came out in 1933 and it wet. And then Betsy Wetsy came out the following year. So the Didy company sued the Betsy Wetsy company because they felt that they stole their idea. Well, they lost the suit. And the legal ruling was drinking a wedding can't be patented. And I've heard that 45% of all toys, Christmas toys, are broken by March. And I got that statistic a number of years ago, so I don't know how true it is nowadays, because years ago we got a lot more physical type toys. I think the kids get more electronic stuff nowadays. But anyway, so most of you are aware that the Christmas tree probably came to us through through Germany into England and North America. But when George Washington crossed the river, the Delaware, that was Christmas Eve, and he traveled down the 12 miles to Trenton, and he was able to capture 750 Hessians. But before I go any further, when they crossed the river, the fellas that rowed them across and built the boats or rafts or whatever they used to get across the river, they were the Glover militia from Marblehead. Those are the people that did it. And about a third of the men that went with George Washington across the river and down to Trenton came from Bristol County, right in this area. About a third of them. So anyways, they get down there, they capture 750 of these Hessians. And the reason they were able to capture them is because they surprised them. It was in the dawn. They'd been celebrating the night before. So now here, Judge Washington says 750 prisoners. What is he going to do with them? He didn't have a POW camp. So what they did was they took these soldiers, these Germans, and they placed them out on farms, out in Connecticut and out in New York, because a lot of the farmers and their sons, if they're 16 or older, they had to join the militia. And so, the militia, they might be gone for a few days at a time, a few weeks at a time, a few months at a time, depending on where they were and what was happening. And so by having these Germans out, they had people working on the farm while they were gone. Well, when the war was all over, a lot of these Germans didn't want to go back to Germany. They liked it here. And in fact, a lot of them literally married the farmer's daughter. So they were helped to popularize the Christmas tree. And by the 1840s, Queen Victoria, she popularized the Christmas tree. This is a woodcut from Thomas Nast, who was an American, but there are several woodcuts of her celebrating Christmas with the Christmas tree with her husband. And Well, anyway, so she was like a superstar. Everyone wanted to do what she did, and so that popularized the Christmas tree. Well, when I was a little boy, I'm pretty sure that the average Christmas tree was around $2. I'm not positive. You know, I tried asking Siri, and she only gave me false Christmas trees, not the real ones. I couldn't find out, but I'm pretty sure it was around 2. And Don Adorino, he was my neighbor. They had the biggest, most beautiful tree you could have. It filled up about a quarter of their living room. It was a $4 tree. And his mother used to take it seemed like she took every single piece of tinsel and set individually on all of the days. How many of you had trees like that?
Oh, yes.
Well, I have them now, yeah.
One at
Sure.
a time.
Yeah, well, over at my house, we had the Charlie Brown tree. It was a $1.25 tree. And my brother, sister, and I, we just throw the tinsel onto the tree. And what it made worse was, after Christmas, our neighbors would throw the trees out, and a lot of them didn't bother to take the tinsel off. And back then, it was the metal tinsel. How many of you remember the metal tinsel? Yeah, so my brother and I would take them off and bring them back home and put them in a box to save for the next year. And they get all tangled up and they get knotted up, and we just grab the tangles and knots and throw them on the tree. My parents would never get the tree until about a day or two before Christmas, like the 22nd, 23rd. And it bothered the heck out of me as a kid. Because, having a Christmas tree before Christmas is so much better than having it after. It loses the pizzazz, doesn't it? Yeah, so I asked my dad, why did we wait so long to get the Christmas tree? He said, well, David, we don't want the tree to dry out before New Year's, and we want to have it for Christmas and for New Year's. Well, it sounded logical and everything, but secretly, I believe he was waiting for the prices to go down. And we used to have Christmas parties at the church, local church. It was just down the street, 2 blocks down the street. So my parents were very active in it, and a lot of the neighbors went to the church, and so all the kids in the neighborhood, we all went to the Christmas party the Sunday before Christmas. Now, when the party was all over, I don't remember the exact words, but my minister must have said to me something like, David, are you ready for Christmas? And I must have retorted, no, we don't have our Christmas tree yet. And so he said, well, look, we've got a tree right here. We're going to be throwing it away. I've got one at the rectory. I don't need this one. Why don't you boys help us get the decoration? You can take it home. Well, my brother and I were tickled pink. So we helped take off all the decorations, and we put it under our arm and marched the 2 blocks down to our house. I got into the house and told my parents how we got it, and my father almost hit the roof. They'll think we're poor! Yeah, so the lights on the tree. I bet a lot of you remember those. One bulb went out, they all went out. Remember that? That was such a pain in the neck. And if you already had it mounted on the tree and the lights stopped working, it was like a nightmare, wasn't it? You'd have to undo the bulb and try and get another bulb. And while you were doing that, the metal tinsel would get down into the socket, you get sparks and everything. It was really something. Well, also when I was a little boy, I remember going on a long car trip. We had our grandmother with us for the weekend or something. And then we ended up going up like a little driveway or something about 5 miles an hour. It was so boring. But eventually, we came to this giant castle. And it was all decorated and lots of lights and stuff. And then the 5 miles an hour went by. And when I think about it, I wonder if that trip was from Newton, where I lived, down here to La Salette. It would have been in the 50s. It was in 53 when they started lighting up La Salette. Yeah. And And it might have been the building that burnt down
That's
15
right.
years ago
Yes.
that I saw. I don't know, it could have been something else, but, you know, they have a 3 to 400,000 likes nowadays there. And I think I've told you before that my eyes are not good, like I can't see any of your faces right now. I got astigmatism. And if I look at a star, I don't see the star. What I see is 8 stars in a circle and nothing in the middle, but the 8 stars in the middle. So when I go to La Salette, I take my glasses off and I see 8 times more lights than you people. And it's so beautiful, I enjoy it. Yeah? And you know, about 20 years ago, I started lighting up a bush out in front of my house. And over a period of years, it built up. I had over 5,000 lights on that bush. I had 3 extension cords going out to it because, well, you know, I'd blow fuses, or what were they? Not fuses, but circuits. I'd be blowing the circuit. So I had the 3 separate circuits and all that. When it snowed, the snow would melt over the extension cords because they were so warm. One year, the bush was so heavy with lights, and when it snowed, the whole bush just fell over. I had to prop it up with a 2x4. And so anyways, after Christmas, I go out and buy new sets of lights for it for the following year, because every year, you know, the sets of lights, some of them would stop working. And so I wait for the bargain after Christmas. I guess I got that from my father. So anyways, I had these smaller lights on there, and that's why I went looking for them. Well, I went to Christmas tree shop this one year, and they didn't have the little lights, but they had these. And I used these because I lit up my windows with these. Now look, I think you all know, I've never grown up. I taught 3rd grade, I don't know. So what I do is, see, I put my orange lights in. Then the next week I put green lights in. Then the next week I put blue lights in. And then I put red lights in. And I can't help but think that somebody's walking by my house. I thought they were blue. So I have fun with stuff like that. So anyways, I got this Christmas tree shop. It's $3 for a whole set of them. They had 25 bulbs in a set, and back then it was about $1.50 for 4 or 5 bulbs. And so that was a bargain. So I bought 2 of them. And I brought them home. And I started thinking, boy, they're so inexpensive. I could light up my other bush on the other side. So I went back to Christmas tree shop, and they're down to $2 a set. So I bought 10 sets. Well, to make a long story short, also, I started getting ideas. It's so inexpensive. I could wrap them around my oak trees. I had 3 of them at the time, and my bush and around my porch and everything. And so I kept going back, and the price kept going down. To make a long story short, I ended up with 72 sets of lights. 72 sets of lights. And then it was around that year that I started using, I got a hold of one of these. It tells you how much electricity you use. So I hooked it up to the 3 extension cords I had for my bush. I realized for the first time I'd been spending about $50 to $100 for electricity just to light up my bush. And then I started thinking, well, 4 watts, wherever it went to, here it is, yeah, 4 watts times 25 times 72, that'd be another $50 to $100 electric. I couldn't afford $100 to $200 for electricity. So now what was I gonna do? I had a shed full of lights. So over a period of a couple of years, I donated them to Salvation Army, about 50 of them, 50 sets of them. And the rest of them, I started lighting up the bush. I'd light it with blue lights for Christmas. And then for Valentine's, I'd change them to red. And then for St. Patrick's Day, I'd take the red sets off and I'd put the green sets on. Well, you know, after a couple of years of this, of putting the sets on, taking the sets off, putting the sets on, every month or two, I started thinking there has to be an easier way. what if I leave the sets on there? And all I have to do is change the bulbs. Do you know how long it takes to unscrew 200 bulbs and to screw in 200 new bulbs? So that didn't work out either. Well, oh, I forgot to ask you, do you know what you get if you eat Christmas decorations? Tinselitis.
Oh, I did it.